this special edition of the Horned Frog Blitz podcast, recapping 2016 signing day. What a big day for the Frogs. What a big day for fans all across the nation. Joining me, as always, is my friend Jeremiah Glenn. Jeremiah, how's things going for you today?
It's going pretty good, man. This was another successful signing day is in the books, and this class is fun. I mean, it's fun just to look at it from top to bottom. It's a lot of fun.
If you hear a little sickness in Jeremiah's voice, he was so excited today. He yelled and screamed for about the last about 4 or 5 hours about the Frogs class. So you'll have to excuse him a little bit tonight. But man, great class. They signed 22 players, 10 four-star players. It was obviously the highest recruiting class ever signed by Gary Patterson. That's not to be said that it's the highest class ever signed by TCU, because all you Frog fans that were
remember the Walker class?
Yeah, the best class money could buy for back in the
country,
day.
Yeah,
third or fourth, something like that. Some said it was the best in the country, but
since the recruiting sites have been around,
everyone was doing it back in the 80s. They were, just ask SMU, anyone that's trying to build a good recruiting class, and some would say it still happens to this day in age. Here we are, 2016. But you know what? Recruiting is fun. It's fun to do this job. It's a year-round thing. We're already diving straight into 2017. But let's recap what the Frogs were able to accomplish out there on the trail this year. 22 signees. The guys that I like the best out of this whole class: Shawo, Isaiah. I'm sorry, I'm recapping how Coach P said Shawo's last name today.
Yeah.
You say it the best out of anyone I know. Go ahead and say it.
It's Alanalua,
okay.
But I think Coach P missed it just a little bit.
Hey, don't give Coach P don't give Coach P too much heck, because there's not. I don't think I can say it very good, but there's not very many people that can. Everyone just refers to Shawo as Shawo,
and he's okay with that.
Yeah, that's just fine. But obviously the headliner of the class, yeah. Top 100 player in the country by 24/7 rankings, has a chance to come in and compete right away at running back. Coach P was saying today he's 6'3", 225. When you think of that kind of running back, the one name that pops at the top of my head is Derrick Henry, and the success he was able to have down there at Alabama this year.
Who just so happens to be Shawo's favorite player. That's who he looks up to the most.
The good thing is, if he doesn't work out at running back, he could always slide and either play some linebacker, play some safety. The kid's got extremely fast feet. He's athletic.
He's so quick.
He's smart, and the best news of all, he's already on campus into the off-season program and learning the scheme of everything. And once spring comes around, he'll have a chance to get in there and compete. And if you look at the running backs right now for TCU, there's rumors out there that Sean Nixon might be hurt, might miss some significant time this coming season. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but they took a big loss with Aaron Green. So if you look at the total running back situation, you really only have right now in the spring is Kyle Hicks and Trevorris Johnson. So he'll have a chance to go out there and prove himself in front of the coaching staff, and maybe
he'll do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's definitely the kind of player, and it's funny because when he first committed, everyone was pegging him as a linebacker and as a safety. I mean, anyone that watched him, even when he went to the Nike camps, he was working out at linebacker or safety, and he obviously was on the Frogs' radar as a defensive player. But anyone kind of questioning if he's going to have the ability to play running back, if you listen to the reports and people that I've spoken with that were down covering the Army All-American game, as Frog fans, we saw him playing the game and you saw him score a touchdown. But the analysts and everyone down there, Barton Simmons, our national guy, told me straight up that Shawo is definitely a running back, definitely has the skill set to be a very good running back, was a lot better than what people were really giving him credit for. So definitely the headliner of the group, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when you got a guy like Barton Simmons telling you that he was the best running back down there, I mean, that's saying something. He's just a very versatile guy, and obviously it's Coach P has to fight that urge to not throw him on the defensive side of the ball. But when you got a guy that you got to at least give him a shot to see what he can do. I think he could bring another dimension to this offense and give you that power run game that you haven't really had. That you thought Trevorris Johnson was going to be. You haven't really had that.
And he still could.
And he still could be. Absolutely. He's just going to be a junior this next year. So, but yeah, I mean, Shaywo, definitely the headliner of the class, but I think he's 1A and 1B to me is Isaiah Chambers. He's probably my favorite player in this class. I love the way he gets off the ball. He's got a killer first step. He's got a wide range of moves off the line. He's got a killer spin move. He's very quick. He's very strong, and he's got really long arms. So I mean, he's like Coach P said today in the press conference. He's already got the body type that could step in and play right away. Now it's just, and like he said, there's not a lot of defensive end has to learn, but it all depends on how quick he catches on to how much he plays.
Well, the great thing about it is they only signed one defensive tackle with Blacklock, and we'll get into him, I'm sure, here in a few minutes. But at 260 to 270 pounds, Isaiah is already built as a college player, just like Coach P had said today. If you can imagine with his frame being 6'4", 6'5", I can see him staying at that weight if they really want him to, or I could see him going up to 290 and maybe even moving inside, play a little 3-tech, play outside. I think he could be in the future one of those guys that could play a little bit of both, kind of like Terrell Lathan was able to do. And I think you hit the nail on the head. He's one of those guys that is fast off the edge and going to be one of those players that we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on for the next, definitely 3 or 4 years. But another guy that I really like in this class, Ross Blacklock. I mean, I said it today to Coach P. When they joined the Big 12 3 years ago, they really wanted to go in and be able to recruit bigger bodied players on the offensive and defensive lines. Ross is definitely that guy. He's going to step on campus and automatically be the biggest defensive lineman on the roster at 6'4", 320 pounds. But the thing about it is he really doesn't move like a 320-pounder. He moves pretty quick. And I think he's going to be causing some havoc in some opposing backfields in his career at TCU.
When you look at him, he's just raw. I mean, he's a raw prospect right now. He's gotten by in his career by just overpowering people just because of his size. I think once he really gets the technique part of the game down and really, even Coach P said he's 326 right now, but he won't play at that same 326 at TCU. He might be 315. It might be 326, but it's going to be a different 326 than what he's carrying right now. And so Coach P likes that big body. He says, you need something like that to plug up the middle in the Big 12, and I think it's going to be an asset immediately. I think he's going to be able to step right in and contribute. He's a big physical kid that he plays hard. The question's going to be with a guy that size is how many reps can you get from him on the defensive side of the ball against a high paced offense,
especially when you're playing against an offense that snaps the ball every few seconds. But
that's the good thing is you got to build that depth so that you can rotate him in and he can get 40, 50 snaps a game.
Frog fans received good news on Wednesday as Coach Peace confirmed that Tyree Horton was going to be on campus in June. I was told it was going to be May, but June seems logical since that's when most of the high school kids get to campus early on, and that wouldn't be any different for any JUCO player. When they get to campus, it's usually around the same time, but big addition. It's going to hurt a little bit for him not to be here in the spring, but as far as the abilities that he has on defense, being a sideline-to-sideline player, he's 225. He runs extremely well. He's going to adapt to Coach Patterson's defense. If he buys in and learns the system pretty quickly, I could see him becoming another Paul Dawson type. And if we get another Paul Dawson around TCU, that's going to be very good for the defense.
That's actually who he reminds me of a little bit. The way he really tracks the ball well. He seems to diagnose plays well. He's in the backfield right away. He's faster than Paul Dawson, but he hits just like him. So there's a lot to like with Horton. So you just hope that when he gets in, he's able to catch on pretty quick. But he's a guy that you definitely like going forward.
Who's another player you like?
Man, we talked about maybe, can't remember which one we picked him in our story now, but Ennis Gaines, which award did we give him? Was it
biggest potential?
Okay, and that's where I stand on this. I think Ennis Gaines has the potential that he's got the skill set to be, when it's all said and done, the best player in this class. Now, will he be? Maybe, maybe not. Will he be a top 3-4 guy? Maybe, maybe not. He has the ability, and with Coach P's knack for coaching up safeties, and for this kid's, he's really excited to get to TCU.
Yeah.
He's really ready to jump in and learn. And if you just look at his athletic ability, his size, his speed, everything he brings to the table. Man, I see a kid that's just going to be a nightmare for opposing teams, and he's a big hitter. He's fast. He's a ball hawk like Chris Hackett, but a lot faster than Chris Hackett. So he's the whole package, man. He's probably one of my top 2 or 3 favorite guys in this class that I think is going to be a dynamic player.
You said he's an exciting player. If you ever want to get excited about the TCU Oregon game, just go watch. When he was watching the game live and Denzel batted that pass away at the last second. I mean, that was just pure adrenaline. Even if you're
scroll through his Twitter page and find that it's good stuff, man. It's just pure honest reaction to a great play, and you could just tell he already felt like he was part of the team.
Oh yeah, he was,
before signing day had ever rolled around.
He was yelling so much. I think Mom got on to him. It was pretty good. But Ennis is he is a prototypical Gary Patterson safety. He's long. He's 6'3". He's depending on who you ask, he's between 190 and 200 pounds. Very, very fluid. He can move from sideline to sideline. He has, like you said, Chris Hackett. Chris had an uncanny ability to judge a play and watch it develop before it really did. His reaction to a play was so good, it made him so much better than other defensive backs in the Big 12. That's why, exactly. That's why he had so many turnovers and interceptions when he was a junior. But Ennis kind of reminds me of the same kind of player, faster. He can play man coverage. He can come up and hit you. Like you said, I'm really excited. I think out of these 22 guys, it's a very impressive class top to bottom, but Ennis would probably be one of my top 2 or 3 players that I really like. When I first saw his film, when I found out TCU was kind of looking at him, I thought this is a top 5 safety in the state and a top 10 safety in the country. And Barton agreed, and he made him the number 9 safety in the country, which is
well deserving.
Very justified. I know a lot of people are going to kind of say, he might be the most underrated of the class, but for people that actually went out there and watched his highlights and learned a little bit more about him, they know this guy's the real deal. And it's a big year for safeties in Texas, and he's right there near the top.
This may be sacrilege just to guys that follow recruiting hardcore, but I like him every bit as much as I like Brandon Jones. I really do, and I mean that. But the other guy that I really liked that was right there with Ennis Gaines, in my opinion, who I think is going to make a huge impact, was Darius Anderson. Just turn on, if you haven't done it yet, turn on that kid's highlight film. It is impressive. It's fun to watch. And he's got a little wiggle. He's got speed, but he's got some power too. He's got great vision. He's great lateral movement. He looks like a guy that's going to really excel in the TCU offense.
What was the surprise of this recruiting class for you?
Well, before
not saying who surprised you. I mean, overall, just as a overall look at this recruiting class, not who was the surprise commit or anything like that, but what surprised you out of this class?
This might sound pessimistic on my part, but we have been covering TCU recruiting for a while, and I think it surprised me a little bit to see. This sounds terrible, but for me, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Offensive lineman from Manville.
Austin Myers.
That was the one I really thought after De'Aaron King decommitted. I just felt like with all the love that Ole Miss is showing the Manville guys, and Deontay Anderson ends up at Ole Miss, that's where I thought Austin Myers was going to go. And it was shaky for a while. He wasn't really giving off the vibe of being a solid commit. Like I could never get a response from him. And if I did, it was very short. And it was really hard to read him. And towards the end of the last 2 to 3 weeks before signing day, he really started acting like more included in the class. And I think that was big. But I think that surprised me that TCU was able to hold off a number of Clemson made a run, Ole Miss made a run. A lot of teams made runs at him. This is an Under Armour All-American. Guy went to the opening. This is a guy that had every school in the country after him, and they were able to hold him off. So between him and them being able to hold on to Isaiah Chambers and the guys of that quality with the names and the traditional powers that were coming after these guys, it just shows that TCU – I know guys are frustrated because of the guys you missed out on, but Coach P says, worry about the ones you get, not the ones you don't.
Right.
They were able to hold off traditional powerhouse programs for some of the top players in the country, and that's the only way you can look at it. I mean, look at the positive. They held on to these guys, and they fought off a lot of teams that really wanted their players.
You and I have a friend that's a diehard Texas fan, bleeds burnt orange, and – I was happy for him today because Texas signed a pretty good class. They were able to land in or get some of the top players, not only in the state but the country. But it was kind of premature for him to start anointing the team as a Big 12 championship caliber team.
He's probably not the only.
Well, yeah, there's a lot. There are several like that, and I simply tell them Texas has been signing those type of classes for going on 10 years, and the last I looked, it didn't have big-time results, and that's why you don't worry about the ones you don't get.
It's never been a talent problem in Texas.
Right. It's never been a talent problem, and obviously people that believe in Charlie Strong thinks he's going to get it turned around, but I told him again, he's had 4- and 5-star players on his roster the last 2 years, and he's won a total of 13 games. So, I mean,
I do think Charlie Strong could get it turned around, but what you and I discussed earlier today, you got to have a quarterback, and they don't have a quarterback. Do you think Shane Buechele is going to step in as a true freshman and just all of a sudden be their savior? I just don't see it happening.
I think Shane's a great player, but I think it's going to be tough for him to do that. But anyway, not to get sidetracked from this, but you're right. I mean, the players you didn't get, it's disappointing, but when you think about it, and I asked Coach P this question today, what has changed in recruiting? This year alone, TCU was able to beat out Alabama, Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, LSU, Ole Miss. The list goes on and on, USC. I mean, every one of the prominent programs in college football right now, we're going after these recruits. And TCU was able to win several of those battles. 3 years ago, you couldn't have told me that. I mean, if you would have told me, hey, 3 years from now, TCU is going to win those battles, I would have said, you're kind of crazy. But they are, and they did.
They're winning them, and they're going to continue to win them, and they're winning them at a higher percentage these days. I want to give credit where credit is due for this post because it was a very impressive breakdown on the board, but I'm sorry I don't remember who posted it today. So if you're listening, I'm talking about you. The post where you broke down the amount of Power 5 and SEC conference offers for the prospects. To me, this is big because you can get caught up in rankings, and especially if you start looking at the composite rankings, it can kind of be a little shaky because you don't know if ESPN or Rivals or whatever is not rating a kid right. So I always have liked to look at who's recruiting that school. And Coach P said the same thing today. He likes to look at who, not that he bases his decisions, but it also kind of verifies in his mind when he sees a guy he likes. Oh, well, yeah, look at these other 15 schools.
He gave props to UTSA.
Absolutely, he did. So, but the poster today mentioned that last year TCU had their commits had a combined 90-something Power 5 offers. This year, 150 Power 5 offers combined for TCU's commits. On top of that, 40 of those from the SEC. That right there is getting it done. You're battling LSU. You're battling Alabama. They have 4 guys on their that are committed that had Alabama offers. How many? 8 that had OU offers. It used to be that you'd beat OU for 1 guy here and there.
Right.
You beat OU for 8 guys in this class. Just let that sink in for a second. If you'll really dig into this class, there's no way you can be upset with what you've pulled in. I mean, you just can't.
I think a little bit of excitement today because, obviously the Frogs had a chance to close in on some of the top players, Kyle Porter, Tyree Cleveland. I think the fact that guys like Shawo and Brennan some of those guys, Isaiah, were already on campus, kind of took away from some of the signing day excitement.
Sure.
Even, knowing that, how cool would it have been to see Shaywo's LOI come through? And by the way, the TCU FTW Twitter site, man, what a great job those guys did as far as
heck of a job.
Putting Brian's voiceover on these plays.
That was a nice little touch, man. I gave Brian some props on Twitter today. He's the best in the business. There's hands down the best in the business, and that was just a really cool touch that they did for those recruits.
So what other surprises? Are you surprised at all that the Frogs were able to go all the way up to the Northeast and get Lucas Nang from
the
Connecticut?
Top player in Connecticut? Yeah, I mean, I am. And also when you look at, it's easy to get caught up in name schools. Okay, and obviously these schools I'm about to name are schools that were powerful programs at one time, but there's still some allure, especially for a recruit from that part of the country. But his final schools were Miami, Auburn, and TCU. Mm-hmm. Penn State offered him. I mean, he got offered from a lot of very, very solid programs, and for him to come all the way to Texas, to go all the way to the Alamo Bowl on his own dime with his parents, he showed a genuine interest. He fell in love with the program, and what a grab. To me, it's another guy that's underrated, probably because of where he's from and the talent level he was playing against. But man, just take one look at this kid. He is put together, and he looks like a type of guy that could be a 3-year starter at offensive tackle. He is. I mean, between him and Meyer, I really love what they did on the offensive line in this class. But just again, to go to Connecticut and pick up a guy like that, that says something for the staff. So, we had a couple guys asking what actually happened with Tyree. Not to switch gears so quickly there, but
we want to go about the guys that the Frogs didn't get.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it a little bit because Tyree was kind of all over the map there at the end, and he was leaning towards TCU. Then he was being pushed to Arkansas, and then it was back and forth, and information was coming in quickly. But so give everybody kind of a rundown of what actually happened.
How much time we got? No, I'm just kidding. No, first, you know what? I'll switch gears first on you because it's a good question. But I'm going to talk about Ryan Parker first because he's the guy that signed with him today. That was kind of a surprise. Ryan was one of those guys. It's going to tie into Tyree, trust me. Ryan was one of those guys that TCU was kind of looking at this whole time, and obviously signed with the Frogs out of high school. And the funniest thing, all you guys that know my son knows, he loves football, and I train him. I don't train him. I have someone else train him. Well, it happens to be one of the guys that trains my son is good friends with Ryan Parker. So that's how I was able to find out about Ryan even visiting. And, well, I guess it was supposed to be tight-lipped because the Frogs are still in the midst of recruiting Tyree and obviously Audie Omotosho. And so that's why some of that stuff didn't get brought up over the week other than, it was a visit. Nothing was really part of it. And then today, it was really coming out that he was obviously going to sign with the Frogs. And it was a big pickup because number 2 receiver in the country. Oddly enough, they signed the number 1 and number 2 JUCO receiver in the country.
This is a kid they signed out of high school too, so they've always loved his game.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of him being able to get it taken care of in the classroom. But I mean, as far as athletically,
yeah,
I mean that guy is a freak.
Well, it's funny. Carlos asked Coach P today, what made you go after Ryan? He's a good player. What else?
He's an incredible player. He's not the biggest receiver, but he's got good size.
He's 6'1", 6'2". Yeah.
But he knows how to high point the ball, and he's a very physical receiver as far as when the ball's in the air, he goes and gets it, and he makes some spectacular catches. So he's a guy that I'm really excited to see kind of integrate into the system.
I know there's obviously some questions on whether or not he was going to qualify. He's still actively getting what he needs to get done. I do think he's going to get that accomplished.
Yeah, I don't think TCU would have honestly taken a chance on him again if they didn't have a really good feeling that he was going to get this done.
Yeah.
I know there's a question that's on the board. A couple of different folks are asking, is he going to qualify? Well, if he can't qualify at OU, how can he at TCU? It's not that he couldn't at OU. I don't think OU wanted to have the patience with him to go through the summer and wait.
Let me tell you about the OU. Okay. He chose OU because TCU had backed off of him.
Yep.
There, make no mistake about it. Ryan has wanted to go to TCU ever since high school. His main goal was to get back to TCU. The thing about it is when you have OU come in and you're not getting looked at by the school that you really want to go to, you're going to take care of yourself from that point. This is not something I'm making up. This is something I've been told straight up from Ryan before, from his friends, from other people I talk with. This was a no-brainer for him. If TCU was going to give him the opportunity to come in and play, that's where he was going. No other school in his mind was going to keep him from trying to go to TCU. So for anyone that kind of says, oh, well, he couldn't get qualified at Oklahoma, we'll see where he ends up. But, sometimes he couldn't get qualified is another phrase for sour grapes. So, just keep an eye on it. That everything I'm hearing right now is pretty positive. Not a done deal by any means, but close enough where the Frogs would obviously take a chance. But Tyree Cleveland, everyone's kind of leaning in right now, listening closer. Man, all over the place. I've really never been.
He woke up this morning not knowing where he was going.
Yeah, still. So, just kind of give an inexact timeline. The Frogs have felt good about him for a few weeks. And when I say they were putting every effort forward to get him, Anderson was recruiting him. Looper was recruiting him. Sonny had talked with them. Meacham, some people said that, Meacham and Cleveland would talk every day, whether it was Cleveland just calling him or, whatever. But the thing about it is TCU gave every effort possible. And up until this previous weekend, everything that I was hearing, even people down in Houston were all hearing that he was going to TCU.
Yeah.
And then he visited Arkansas. It was before his visit to Florida, visit to Arkansas, actually. Then he visited Arkansas, and next thing you know, people are saying he's going to Arkansas. Well, he lives with his aunt. His parents don't live. His parents live in Florida. He lives with his aunt down in Houston, and apparently the aunt was really adamant about him going to Arkansas. She had a dream, and God told her to tell Tyree to be a Razorback. That's really how some of this happened. So she was. I don't know what really made Arkansas stick out, but I know that's where the aunt wanted him to go. He had people from Florida. His mom and dad wasn't the greatest situation down there, but all of his friends were still down there. That's where he's originally from. Didn't move to Texas till junior high.
When he went on his official visit, he actually was on an official visit with one of his middle school buddies that was there for a visit as well.
Yeah.
So that played a big part.
Yeah, and so you get back home, you're around all your friends that you grew up with, and you've been away from there. So basically, after his Florida visit, I was still told TCU is still in great shape, but Florida did make an impact on the visit. So you just kind of wait, and what are you hearing the next day? Well, I'm still hearing TCU is good. Ask another person. Florida's starting to make a surge here. Okay, the next day, Florida's starting to really make a surge here. He's not going to Houston or Arkansas. So about the time after, I think it was Monday when he told TCU that he was down to TCU in Florida. By Tuesday night, he was telling people he can't decide. His coaches told him he needs to decide where he wants to go. They're going to have a big ceremony in the morning, and he couldn't even tell the coaches where he was going. He was still undecided. Again, people in every corner, aunt telling him Arkansas, family telling him Florida. He has a great relationship with the TCU coaches. The only program that was really out of the picture at this point was Houston, and this was Tuesday afternoon, I believe it was, and so you're really looking at Florida, TCU, and Arkansas. But again, sources told me that he had already told TCU and Florida it was down to them two. So later that night, where's he at? He's down to Florida and Houston. And the funny thing about it is the guy I talked to earlier in the day said, Tyree is so confused, he might just wake up Wednesday morning and say, screw it, I'm staying home and going to Houston.
He really just for the
simple fact that he could not make up his mind. And, it like I said, it's nothing that TCU did wrong. It's nothing Florida did different other than having the family aspect down there where he knows a lot of people. TCU did everything possible. They got, all the kids from Houston were, going after him. Obviously, the other commitments were going after him. I mean, everyone was kind of in their corner trying to get him to commit to TCU. And I think if signing day would have been about a week and a half earlier, he would have been a frog. But that's how recruiting is. Recruiting can change from day to day, and I always use the Andrew Billings example.
Have you ever told that full story?
I don't want to get into it. Let's just say I had the story written with quotes on why he was going to TCU. And
from Andrew himself.
Yeah, he was committed to TCU for a full week as a silent commit. His announcement day, I call him, his dad confirms to me, and then about 3 hours later, his dad calls me, or 2.5 hours later, and says, Mom wants him to stay close. And next thing I know, he's going to Baylor. So that recruitment had literally changed in the matter of a couple hours. So that's just how fast this game can change.
And then for the guys that are on the board, and look, I mean, some of you guys have been following us for a long time, following recruiting for a long time. Some of you guys are kind of new to the recruiting game. Just understand that when we bring information to the board, it's not a guess. We have built solid,
Man, why you got to get me pissed off tonight?
Okay, I'm not trying to get you mad. We've got very solid sources, and like Jeremy likes to say, we're very careful of the way we word things. If anything Jeremy's taught me is to be very careful with how you word things, because I used to be really bad about that. So I've gotten better, but just understand that the information that when we bring it, it's accurate at that time. Does that mean it's going to be accurate 10 minutes later? There's no guarantee. Does that mean it's going to be accurate the next day? There's no guarantee. We will always bring the most up-to-date information that we have, and it'll be accurate and checked by multiple sources before we come out with it. So understand some guys get frustrated and go, well, how can you say this? And then, he turns around and, almost like you're blaming the messenger whenever an 18-year-old kid or 17-year-old kid changes his mind. Also, just to factor in that these are 17 and 18-year-old kids that are making huge decisions with massive amounts of pressure, and a lot of these kids just can't pull the trigger, and they go back and forth. So just kind of keep those things in mind.
I've had, in the past 2 months, I've had 2 kids that I've got quotes and ready to run commitment stories on, and the commitments did not happen. And so, that like I said, that's just how fast, whether it's from their end, whether it's from when they try to commit to a school and schools aren't ready to take them. It's recruiting. I mean, it's recruiting. It changes the minute to minute in the 11th hour. I mean, there was a quarterback last night that got an 11th hour offer from TCU. And if they would have offered about 2 weeks earlier, he probably would have committed. And it might have helped with Tyree, but it's one of those things where they looked at Keandre Woodtee first, like Woodtee better, and tried to go after him, but you never know. I mean, it's like I said, it's recruiting, and it's fun to cover, but it's stressful at the same time. And we've both lost plenty of hair in the last year.
We were talking about that today.
Yeah, I got flowing locks just like you, and
yeah.
Let's dive into some questions, man, because I know I put a post out tonight and basically said I'm going to take the first 5 or 7 questions, and I think about 5 minutes later, I had 15. So we'll dive into as many as we can. I don't want to keep this on forever, but first question we got, of the 22 on board, what was the most interesting recruiting storyline you encountered?
That's from Gonzo Frog.
I mean, from my point of view, the most interesting was probably Kyle Porter. I thought Kyle was in the bag. TCU thought he was in the bag. Everyone that was kind of talking with him was almost 100% certain that it was TCU Arkansas. I even had another recruit tell me that Kyle told him it was TCU and Arkansas, and next thing you know, he's choosing Texas. And when I found the news out on Tuesday before it all hit, first thing the person said to me when they called is, "You're not going to believe this. You know what?" And I didn't. I thought it was a joke, and I would have told you Arkansas 10 out of 10 times other than TCU. I thought there was no way he was going to Texas. The biggest disappointment from that is that he decided on Texas even though they don't even have a running backs coach. So it kind of tells me that there was probably some recruiting revolution where all these big names really did sit down with, at Texas and really talk about what they wanted to do as far as, bringing all these big time athletes to Texas. And
something happened. You can't orchestrate that many big name, not to get back on Texas, but to get that many big name top 300, top 250 caliber players in a 24-hour period. You're sitting on 12 commitments. All of a sudden you're closing with 22 the next day, and you've got 10, top 250, 300 players in the country. So, I mean, that's, yes, it's Texas, but that's something I haven't seen before. And I really do think it's that group think, and everybody gets together and says, oh, we're going to be the group that changes the fortunes of this program. And you heard that last year with that class for Texas as well. So it's, you got to, like the young guys, belief that they have it in them to be the ones that change it. But, you got to have a quarterback.
Charlie's got to win 8. He's got to win 8.
If he doesn't win 8, I don't think he comes back. I think if he goes 7-5 again, I think he's gone.
We can talk about Texas for a while.
Yeah.
We should, just to make our friend mad, but we won't tonight. Did you have any interesting storyline that you can recall?
Oh, man. Not that I can think of that was real interesting. I mean, talking to Isaiah was cool. I really got to know Isaiah pretty good throughout the process. Talked to him a lot, and just to kind of see how he was kind of quiet with other recruits when he first committed.
Yeah.
And then he really kind of took it upon himself to kind of be like Brennan was and start reaching out to kids and using his name and his status as an elite prospect to kind of help recruit guys to TCU. And he wasn't shy about it, tweeting "We Run This State," the WRTS, and hashtag. And everybody remembers the Dalen Mack stuff from last year. That was a kind of a dig on them. And it's you could tell he was all in, and he had fun with the process, but he did it the right way. And I guess that was kind of the coolest thing for me, was kind of getting to know Isaiah throughout the process.
So you guys that are sitting at your computer, I know there's a ton of y'all guys that were probably thinking Isaiah was going to be one of those recruits that just hung on to TCU until a bigger school came in, but he did stay true to his word. And guess what? TCU is one of those bigger schools now.
They are.
Next question. We already kind of discussed Cleveland a second ago, and TCU guy says, what recruit did the staff really think they had locked up that ended up missing out on?
That's
Kyle Porter.
Period,
period. Early game plan for 2017. We mentioned a few weeks ago, it's a small class, 14. Coach P reiterated that today, confirmed what I said.
They've only got 7 seniors in this next class, so the low number 7, and with transfers and everything, if anything happens, he's saying max 14 or 15 in this class.
So right now, TCU's class with 2 has about 5 spots left. I'm just kidding. Don't freak out, everyone.
It's going to be, you're talking between 5 and 10 guys.
The big position needs, they need safeties, need corners. They're going to have obviously go after maybe another running back. Receiver's not going to be a big need, maybe one. I think we've been pretty vocal on who that guy would be. Defensive linemen, more particular defensive tackles. I think they need some more of those guys, but really the pressing need is going to be corners and safeties early on. But who do we need to be getting to know? I mean, it's right now, whatever offers you're seeing go out, these guys are the guys at the top of their list. They're not going to be sending out 100 and something offers this year. They're really going to try to keep it to the elite list that they feel are guys that can really come in and compete right away. And that's why we've already seen someone like Cameron Buckley, them not taking his commitment just yet, because they have plenty of 5'11", 6-foot receivers. They're looking for a bigger guy, and they're going to be real picky. They're going to be extremely picky this class with the type of positions they offer, as far as size, speed, everything else. So just learn to acknowledge that, and you'll be better off not expecting the Frogs to offer, everyone out there. Next question. Any clues on who will be at the first junior day? I just found out about the junior day 2 days ago, or 2 or 3 days ago, so I have no clue. All I know is R.J. Sneed will probably be there, Sean Robinson, Wes Harris, and I would think Edward Ingram from DeSoto is going to make the trip over there.
That's the big offensive lineman I just offered.
Yeah. Biggest miss, I think, obviously all of us can decide that was probably Tyree, just for the fact that he was the highest rated receiver. That was a question by Jody Hearn. Putt asked the previous question. Putt likes to ask the junior day questions. But the junior JUCO corner, I think when Coach P said that today, I think people were kind of already thinking they have someone out there, but he was talking about when they get back out there and do spring evaluations, because they're going to get back out there in April. They'll go to JUCOs and they'll try to find a guy that maybe wasn't maybe a talked about player coming out of high school, but a full qualifier. Because if you go to a JUCO right now and you find a kid that was a full qualifier out of high school, bye-bye JUCO. You're going to TCU, or you're going to wherever is recruiting you. And that's kind of what happened with some of those kids last year that they were kind of looking at but never offered, like the Bird kid that ended up playing linebacker at Kansas State. They got in on him and really never offered, but he ended up getting offered by Kansas State and was able to get up there immediately. Any names out there? No, obviously went over the names. Position needs we went over. Qualification issues, I'm not going to get into that. I mean, I don't think it's fair for me to sit here and talk about players that are going to be on the verge of not qualifying. They're obviously out there doing the classwork. They're working hard. If there was a guy out there that was just no way, nothing, he's not going to qualify because he's not doing his work, I'd probably tell you guys. But for any of these guys right now that are still pretty close, they're busting their tails trying to get qualified, and I can only think of 1 or 2 players right now, and that's about it. I mean, really, that's about it. But I think it's going to be not even thought of here in the next few months when those guys start to get on campus. A lot of people want to know about the biggest miss, but we've already kind of talked about what happened with Cy Martin. You want to jump in on that one?
Man, honestly, you might know more than me. The hardest thing for some people to understand, well, I guess we hit on this earlier, is that guys do change their mind. Guys do have outside pressures. And it's not always black and white. You don't always know what all's going on. It sounds like Cy has some issues with a family member or somebody that may not be in good health right now. The LSU site was reporting that he is still considering trying to make up his mind or make a decision. But, we talked about this. If he wanted to still come to TCU, is that even an option anymore? I mean, is it the door completely closed on him? Or is there still a chance that if he decided he still wanted to come to TCU, that they would still take that letter of intent?
I don't want to say TCU has moved past him, but I know there hasn't been a lot of discussion about him. I was told he was going to decommit, and typically when I get told a kid's going to decommit, it's happened. I was told it was going to happen with Courtney Lark. Next day he decommitted. I was told it was going to happen with Clifton Lewis. Next day he decommitted. I mean, typically when I'm told that a kid's going to decommit, he typically ends up doing it. it is kind of strange that he hasn't came out publicly and said that he's decommitting from TCU. So maybe there are some back channels where they're still working with each other, trying to figure out what they're going to do, get everything with his off the field life situated, and then maybe make his decision. But I think it speaks volumes that he was at LSU last week. Again, unofficially, that's the second time in 2 weeks he was over there. I'm sure people are telling him, hey, stay close to home, be here at LSU. I'm sure people are telling him, if you go to TCU, players from Louisiana, they graduate and they're very successful. So he's probably getting tugged a little bit both ways, but I speaking personally, I'm not worried about it right now. And unless something drastic changes, I don't think TCU is that much either. So, we'll obviously keep an eye on it for the next week.
That's kind of the vibe that I got is like right now it's not happening. And if something changes, then that's a bridge you'll cross when you get there. But my understanding is just as of right now, there's nothing going to happen with that. Oh, hey, can I throw something in real quick?
Yeah, ask.
I know you've got some questions on here, and I don't want to go too far backwards, but you asked me earlier about maybe something that, like an interesting story or something that happened during the recruiting process. Okay. Can we touch on Christian Wallace a little bit? That's a little ways back, but there was a lot of questions back then, and we didn't really talk about it a lot. Because if you just look on the outside, Christian Wallace is one of those guys that had the whole package as far as just all the tools, as far as just looked like a big-time player. But there was just some red flags there. I guess we just want to leave it at that.
Well, nothing that the kid's a bad kid or anything, but, he went to a TCU camp. That's to say he looked a lot better on film than he did in person. And, the funny thing at the time was his coach was Tony Tatamy. And everyone who follows Frog football knows who Tony Tatamy is. He was the linebackers coach at TCU not too long ago, and he left on good terms with Coach Patterson. So if there was any red flags, Tatamy was certainly going to tell the TCU coaching staff about it. And so based on kind of how he performed at a camp and how he had carried himself around his high school, kind of led to him decommitting. But the thing about it was funny because when he committed, he didn't even tell the coaches. He just tweeted it out that he was committed
without knowing if they were going to accept.
So that was kind of put TCU in a bind, and it was funny because he committed the same day Shaywo committed. And I don't remember what game it was, but it was a game where TCU dominated someone, and there was a lot of excitement. And Shaywo committed, and I think Christian was one of those guys where, I want to be in the moment too. I'm going to commit. And so he tweets out that he's committed. And I remember talking to him and asking him, hey, what was Coach Patterson's reaction when you told him you were committing? And he said, I haven't told him yet. So, it's just one of those deals where I think it was, worked out better for both parties that TCU they backed off. They really backed off when Kenny Perry went to Kansas because Kenny was his recruiter.
Right.
And the reason why Christian decommitted and said it publicly is that TCU hadn't talked to him in over a month. So that should kind of tell people where TCU was with the whole recruitment.
But I like the way they handled it. They let him, on his terms, kind of, reopen his recruitment. So I respect that about the way they handled that. They did that with others. So I've always appreciated the way that they try to look out for the kids in this process.
Another.
Sorry to get you off track there. That popped in my head while you were talking, and I know some guys had questions about that, and just wanted to kind of fill them in a little bit.
So the question is, I know it's hard to quantify, but what is the staff's current feeling on this class? I can tell you they're very excited.
They're ecstatic.
I know Coach P comes out and says they don't pay attention to the rankings, but recruits do, and recruits love the fact that this is a top 20 class, top 22.
You could tell today, talking to Coach P, that he was excited about
What was the first thing he said about Isaiah Chambers? He is very highly publicized.
Yes.
Which means he was talked about on recruiting sites.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they get paid attention to. Trust me. I know stars and rankings are meaningless to them. It's about eval. So how does this class compare to recent years? We said it early on paper, this is the top class Gary Patterson has ever signed. Easily the highest record number of 4-star players, top 100 players. I mean, I think they had like 6 or 7 top 247 players. So all in all, just a great class, and they really went out. I know they wanted to get another corner, but from top to bottom, they filled every position need they really needed to at the beginning of this class.
They did, and I think just listening to him talk, he's not going to come out and say too much right now. Coach P won't, and neither will anybody else until they see what these guys do on the field. Like, we'll watch some of the early enrollees in the spring, watch what the other guys do when they get on campus. Because all this is fine and good, these rankings and everything's great, but we all know that none of it matters until they step on the field and actually do something for TCU, and none of these guys have yet. But you can just kind of tell, listening to Coach Patterson today, he's excited to see what he's got, because I think he's got some pieces that he hasn't had before, and he's looking forward to plugging those guys in.
This trend started really back in 2013, maybe even 2012, where you started to see the shift in TCU recruiting classes, where they were kind of not in the 50s or 60s, but they were getting in the 40s or 30s, and we even started talking about it then. This is the kind of class where you can make an impact. And obviously it's worked out, because they've gone 15-3 in the Big 12 the last 2 years, where everyone said they weren't going to have the depth to compete. They've gone, 23-3.
Yeah.
So you're talking about these classes with the right coaching, they're excelling.
And this is not a homer remark. This is my honest opinion. They are just now scratching the surface of what they can be. I think I know a lot of guys wanted to see a top 15 class or a top 10 class this year, and I predicted one, and I really thought that it was going to be that, and it kind of tailed off at the end. But if you look at it, it's just a slower process than what maybe some want. It's not the overnight, gratification where you're getting instant top 10 classes. But I tell you what, the level of recruits that they're going to get is going to continue to get better and better and better. Like, they may only take 13 or 14 kids this next year, but I bet 8 of them are 4 stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the quality of the player that they're getting is just going to continue to rise, and I really honestly believe that they are just scratching the surface of what they can be, and that's got to be. Other schools aren't going to come out and admit it, but they know TCU's sitting in the middle of DFW. They know that now that TCU has the resources and the ability to compete with these other schools for recruits. I think other schools are looking at TCU and going, wow, that's about to be a really scary program.
What's crazy about this class, though, is they only signed 5 guys from DFW this year. But so far in 2017, they've already got 2 guys, Sean Robinson and Wes Harris. Obviously, 2 of the better players in the country at their positions, and that's the kind of guys that you're going to see in this class. They're going to go after the elite of the elite, try to get those guys. There's going to be some players out there right now that we're not talking about on a consistent basis, but they are going to be players that by the end of this recruiting cycle, everyone's going to be talking about, and everyone's going to be talking about how many great offers they have, what they're ranked, just like we did at the beginning of 2016. It's just the new cycle beginning tonight. So rest.
One more guy that I wanted to give some props to. I wish I'd remembered that. I've written these names down, but he mentioned how going through and giving these awards, how solid you realize how good this class is when you realize the guys that you didn't even mention in the awards. When guys like Cameron Williams and Keyshawn Somerville and Markel Simmons and these kind of quality players, Gary Overshone, he's maybe a project, but this kind of talent can't even make our awards list. I mean, that right there just kind of signifies what you have. A guy like Matt Boson, who I think can contribute next year. Coach P really seems to like him. Says he can put another 10 pounds on him, and he's going to be a nightmare at defensive end.
I'll put him in there.
Yeah, I did not. But I mean, my point though, I mean, just the fact that you do have some guys that we only had so many categories. You can't give every one of these guys an award. don't get me. Never mind. I'm not going to go down that route. I'm not going to stay out of politics right now. Can't give everybody an award, but
who you James Harrison?
Yeah, you saw that I posted today, I guess.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just really again proves a point of how good this class is when you've got those other guys that we couldn't even find a way to fit them into the awards for the signing day awards today, and we're giving out 13 awards, and there's 2 guys picking, so there's 26 available slots, and you still got just so much talent that we didn't even get to mention. So I think TCU really hit a home run with this class, and they filled their needs. Could they have gotten 1 or 2 more guys to really put it over the top? Sure, but you can't look at this in a negative way.
So recapping real quick, as it sits right now, Wednesday night, TCU sits at number 23 overall. Their number, that's going to put them fourth in the composite rankings. ESPN's really tearing them down with their rankings as far as, because Rivals did a good job ranking the kids. Scout did a good job. Obviously, 24/7 did. 24/7 rankings are 18, which would put TCU in second place in the Big 12. So if you want to look at it and kind of brag to your friends a little bit, you could always tell them, well, on 24/7 rankings, TCU finished number two in the class.
In the composite ranking, they did just get jumped by OU because OU landed 5-star linebacker Caleb Kelly late this evening from California. So that jumped them in the composite. But yeah, TCU still ahead of them in the 247 rankings.
Well, we didn't think we were going to go a full hour, but we did. You get 2 recruiting nerds talking recruiting. We'll talk all night.
Happens every time.
Yeah, all the time. But guys, we hope you enjoyed the listen. We certainly enjoyed talking about it. 2016 has been a fun recruiting class.
It's been fun on the boards, guys. Keep up the traffic on the boards. We've loved it. We've loved the interaction with you guys. Just keep that going, and the site continues to grow, and we appreciate y'all.
Actually, 1 year today.
1 year today. Yeah.
Wow, time flies, man. But as you say in recruiting, there's no rest. 2017 is already getting kicked off. We're going to have some updates with some kids in the next few weeks, all the way up to junior day. And as you can see, the coaches are out there working hard today, offering a few kids. So we got to keep up with that. But until we get together next time, guys, we appreciate it.
Thanks for listening.
For Jeremiah Glenn, I'm Jeremy Clark. You guys have a good week.
Thanks, guys.